Welcome back, everybody. So glad to be with you. It's been a week of meetings and talking about mantra meditation, spiritual fitness throughout the valley. And it's really good to be with some of you who are joining us back here again live to ask some more questions and deepen the conversation. I feel that in any decent conversation where we go deep into the subject matter and get something out of it, we end up with more questions than we do answers. And questions really do continually deepen the conversation. It's not that we'll ever come to the absolute conclusion where there's no more questions. Rather, we'll find out that there's more and more to inquire about the infinite subject matter of our spirituality. Birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, even though the sky is unlimited. And according to our capacity, which is really developed by this kind of conversation and deliberation and practice, we'll be able to ask deep questions because we'll really want to know. And this is something I've been thinking about this morning. The aphorism that starts the great work called the Vedanta Sutra, which is a compilation of very pithy statements, which are meant to stimulate a conversation about spiritual inquiry, is that tato brahma jignasa, now that you have a human life, you should feel exhilarated because you have every opportunity in the world to improve yourself. And you have volition, you can make the choices. At any given second, you can decide to pivot and change your life. That's pretty heady. So the questions that we ask determine how deep we can go. So today, feel free to ask questions. I'll be looking carefully at the chat boxes to see if anything comes in. And JM is also monitoring the call today, right, JM? He's there?
Yes.
Okay. So he's watching over things so that because I'll miss a lot as I'm talking, but have no fear. JM is here and he can notice if you're saying something, or if you want to join the call, if you're on Zoom and you want to speak up, ask a question, give a reflection, feel free to do so. Just feel at home. These conversations are really important. So first of all, starting with the system I learned from my teacher many, many years ago. One of the systems he taught me was called Pancharatra. And it is a comprehensive way of living one's life, starting with the way you wake up in the morning. And one of the first, literally the first step one takes in stepping out of bed and putting one's foot on the floor is to express gratitude that you're able to walk on the earth. And remember that you're being, and all of us are being given at every second, unlimited gifts coming to us. And if we're centered in that point, the first step we take out of bed in gratitude, thank you, thanking Mother Earth for allowing me to step on her and providing facility in unlimited ways for me to express my creativity and go deeper into my spiritual nature. Then it starts the day in the right way. And I'm going to make a few points today, and then we'll take some reflections or questions. It's a little harder sometimes in this medium when we're online to ask questions, it seems, because there's one degree of separation from when we're live. We feel the pressure in the rooms like, okay, I'm going to say something. But don't feel like that. Just try to make this natural. If you have things that you want to bring up, please bring them up. And it really adds to the conversation, adds another dimension. So the first thing today is about the importance of aphorisms. There are ways in which we may develop several aphorisms, which are like mantras that direct our lives. One that I discovered recently is something I think that is an overarching principle that will help to guide the conversation I want to have today. And that is, your values determine your character, and your character determines your value. So whenever we're thinking about how to move forward in any kind of activity or discipline and trying to make decisions about what to do or what not to do, going back to our values is really important. And if we establish those, then the dichotomy between what to do and what not to do can be bridged very easily. Another aphorism that I've collected that I heard one time years ago, but stuck with me as a means to direct one's life is, I live to be corrected. If I'm living in that mode, I'm looking for the lesson in everything that happens. Otherwise, it's a battle against the ups and downs in life. But if we're taking it that even the downs are a means for teaching us, refining us, making us more introspective and understanding of how we're interacting with the world, then it becomes, life becomes an everlasting series of learning events rather than having the sense that I'm being stifled somehow or other. If you live to be corrected, you can't be stifled, I guarantee you. Another is, there's just two more, just as an introduction to aphorisms. They're good to keep around and keep in front of you and keep on your lips. What I am is more important than what I have. And this is a spiritual principle, actually, because what we are is a non-material particle. We're actually spiritual entities, but we inhabit a material body, and we just happen to be in a material atmosphere, according to the ancient books of wisdom. We're wholly incompatible with the material world, actually. The Vedas say, asango hyayam purusha. It's addressing the spiritual being that is us within, called the Atma in Sanskrit. And the Atma really has nothing to do with the material world. It's a foreign environment for us. So if you ever feel like a stranger in a strange land, that's why. So looking within and understanding that actually the category of energy I am is much different from the material world. And understanding that my true value is in knowing myself, and that the true value in life isn't what I have right now, because ultimately I really don't have anything. Anything I think I have will be taken away. And that's a constant cause of deep-rooted anxiety in everyone, because even if you gain something materially, and there's nothing wrong with having things material, but just if I start to consider that I get to keep these permanently, that's when the deep-seated anxiety comes in. So learning to put more weight on what I am, which is a spiritual entity, rather than what I have. And what I have is just passing through my hands right now, and I can be a good steward of it, but it's not mine to keep. And the fourth one for today is, where attention goes, energy flows. This is one of the most practical aphorisms or mantras that one can take with one for time management. Consider, what am I doing right now? Where am I placing my attention? Because wherever I'm placing my attention right now, I'm going there. And do I really want to go there? So consider ahead of time where you want to go, and then place your attention. It's our main, or as I like to say, only asset, is the decision where to place our attention. Our attention is very powerful because we're creative spiritual beings, and wherever we direct our attention, we're going to end up there. So be deliberate about where you put your attention at any given minute. Decide for yourself where you want to go, and then place your attention there. And it may not be so easy to do that, but that's the practice of going somewhere that is valuable. So first, I'm going to talk about the topic of duty, because in the wisdom literature that I most refer to, because it's a summary of the Vedas, or the ancient books of knowledge of India, it's called the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, the speaker, or the teacher, Krishna, says duty is very important. So I made these notations about what duty means. Duty means doing the right thing even when it doesn't give you immediate happiness, if that sounds familiar. And if you have a duty plus knowledge, in other words, you're doing the things that you're supposed to do, and then at the same time you cultivate knowledge. And knowledge, here's the definition of knowledge: knowing how the world works. The greatest folly is not knowing how the world works, and ignorance is no excuse. If you drive on the wrong side of the road, as an example, not only going to be end up with injuries, but also you'll be held accountable by the law. So laws of nature are inexorable, and knowledge means taking information from a higher source to learn how the world works. As an example, the law of karma is active in our lives, and if I ignore it and I become what's called a vikarmi, or I ignore karma, I just do whatever I want, I don't consider what's right or wrong, then ultimately I have to suffer. And if somebody wants to know, oftentimes people want to know what's the ultimate source. Like in physics, you try to come up with a mathematical equation that will explain everything. Well, that has not been done. But there is a philosophical point given in the Vedas. There is an explanation for all suffering. And that is not knowing how the world works and working against the laws of nature. So know how it works, get knowledge from a higher source, and then do your duty at the same time. These two things together are very powerful. If you learn what is duty and you do it, and you get knowledge by hearing from a source that is reliable for knowledge. And everybody has to rely on some source of knowledge that they consider self-effulgent. This is something that Socrates pointed out. Otherwise, you get infinite regress. You have to accept some authority, some point at which you say, this is valid knowledge. This is self-effulgent knowledge. It proves itself. And even in the sciences, we have to do that. You can't start over every time. You have to accept what previous great scientists have said in order to make any progress in your discipline, in your science. It's the same in spiritual science as well. So now here's the equation. Duty plus knowledge leads to wisdom. Wisdom is much harder to get than knowledge. Anybody can get knowledge, but you have to combine it with duty. You have some skin in the game. You actually tried it. You did the right thing. And there's a fruit to that, and that's wisdom. And from wisdom comes the crown jewel of yoga, which is absorption. Without absorption, you won't feel anything. You have to be absorbed. In fact, when you're absorbed, that's where all learning and progress takes place. Even, in school, if you're not absorbed, you won't learn. You'll be on the periphery. You'll miss most of the things. And you'll also be bored because it doesn't mean anything to you. So in the Yoga Sutras, meditation, and all the adjustments one makes to come to the point of fixed meditation, and finally absorption, which is called samadhi. And sama means complete, and ti means to focus or keep one's mind fixed. Until you come to absorption, then you're missing the real nectar of life. So in that absorption, there's actually a prize. And that means there's deep happiness. And from that spiritual happiness, which is very distinct from material happiness, which is fraught with worry and fear and anxiety, there is no greater happiness, or one feels there is no greater gain. When one tastes that, that is the prize for doing one's duty, gaining knowledge, and keeping oneself in the practice. That's where transformation takes place, in absorption. So get absorbed. Of course, the definition I put here, it comes from late Middle English. The word absorb means to ab from, and sorbere, to suck in. If you're going to get from the world, get from the situation, you have to be absorbed and see what's going on. So where does this come from? And it comes from the Bhagavad Gita. In the 4th chapter, 10th verse of the Gita, Krishna says that jnana tapasa, these two concepts together. Jnana means knowledge, and I mentioned that before, hearing from the right source, hearing from an authoritative source, someone who's already learned and digested and has wisdom and then can pass knowledge onto you. And tapasa means doing your duty and doing the right thing, even though it may seem inconvenient at the moment. When you have that, that leads to purification, and purification leads to absorption, and absorption leads to this spiritual happiness, which is undeniable. When one tastes it for oneself, one knows one has it. So those are a few preliminary thoughts, and I have much, much more where that came from. But I wanted to start with that because they're such simple concepts. It's an algebraic equation. You can just take it and apply it and see what happens. There are some particulars to it, but let's start with that. And I want to see, first of all, who's out there. So I'm going to put on my glasses here and also see what kind of comments or questions you might have. A reflection is easy because all you have to do is mention anything that you've heard so far that caught your attention.
I'll chime in.
Yes, please.
Yes. So the concept of absorption, I think, is really interesting. And I have been doing yoga for a long, long time. And just this past week on Wednesday, I went to a class where like something clicked and it felt different than any other class I've been to. And I think it's because like with every breath and with every movement, I was in that like intentional state of mind versus letting my mind wander, whatever. But the music, the words of the teacher and everything, I was completely absorbed. And you mentioned that that's what leads to deep happiness. And I don't think I always feel good after yoga, but just the level of contentment that I felt afterwards was unlike anything I had experienced. So that really resonated with me.
Yeah, thank you very much for the testimonial too. And, you know, you're putting in your hard work there, doing your yoga, and then you'll see the result. And you had a special experience where you did notice that. And I liked what you said about the mindset of intentionality. You really felt that deeply, which really meant, you know, being in the moment. So oftentimes the body's in the past, the mind's in the future, and where are we? Jumping back and forth between the two. And very rarely, without practice, without the sadhana and the kinds of things that you mentioned you're doing, can one be actually fixed or absorbed in the moment. Thank you very much for sharing that. That was very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. JM, you notice any other comments or questions I can attend to?
Yeah, we did get a question from Facebook from Karthik. I posted on the Zoom.
Okay, Karthik writes, how to control the urge of judging others and be more considerate that each and every individual's life journey is unique and one may make real quick progress in their spiritual, let's see. Yeah, it says, oh, that just changed. Okay, how to control the urge of judging others and be more considerate that each and every individual's life journey is unique and one may make a real quick progress in their spiritual practice. Yes, well, according to the great bhakti literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, as far as judging others goes, the vision of an elevated soul, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, is that the material nature acts in a uniform way according to karma. And to put it in succinct terms, everyone gets exactly what they deserve because we're on a continuum, no more and no less. And so there's no need to make extra effort to adjust the one's, well, let me put it like this. As far as judging others go, the highly learned person, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is actually seeing the potential of each person rather than considering their past. It's said that some people judge people according to their past. Other people who are more elevated judge people according to their present. They don't consider the past. They say that, okay, whatever is done, but let's move forward from here. But the most advanced consider people according to their future potential. And if one's taking advantage of one's own potential, one can see it more readily in others. And so there's a way in which those who are high-minded, when they see others, even if they're making mistakes, according to us, in various ways, such a person could then compensate that greatly by seeing, okay, what's their future potential? And that's actually something that's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, that if someone has the proper intention as they're working towards spiritual progress, then we should consider that more than anything, more than what they're doing right now or whatever shortcomings they have. And this is one of the ways to overcome this sense of judgment of others. JM, I could see yours starting to bring my attention to something else.
And there is one more question from Facebook. Is the difference between knowledge and wisdom the experience that comes with duty?
Yes, it is. Because when we perform our duty, there's tapasya. Because there's a sense in the unbridled mind that I want to do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Raga Dvesha Vimuktaistu Vishayan Indrayashcharan Atmavasharavate Atma Prasadam Adhigachati. That if instead of catering to your lower nature and just doing whatever you feel like doing at any time, you restrain yourself and actually follow Shastra. Shastra means higher knowledge. It's an interesting word. There's Shastra and Shastra. So Shastra means these high-minded wisdom literatures that give us knowledge that we can follow like a North Star. And if you follow that voluntarily, then you avoid Shastra. It's from the same root word. And Shastra means like a sword. So you can do it the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is I voluntarily do it. And I use my higher intelligence to follow Shastra, or the wisdom that's being passed down to me through the right channel. And Shastra means that I just do whatever I want and ultimately get punished by material nature itself. And that sort of sobers me up and I go, oh, maybe I better do it the right way. So you have those choices. And yes, wisdom really means vigyan. So there's gyan, which means knowledge, and vigyan means realized knowledge. It's much more valuable. And how else would one get that except through performing one's duty? You know, if you do your duty, like for instance, if you make a vow to take care of somebody, and then you actually go through the pain of taking care of them through thick and thin, then ultimately the fruit will be there. Because you'll realize the importance of vows and so forth. It's not just for one's own enjoyment that we come together with other people. We also have a duty to take care of them. In fact, in marriage, there used to be a lot of vows about that, you know, I'm here to protect you. I'm here to take care of you. We're going to work together no matter what happens. And that's a kind of duty. You know, if you stick to that, then you'll learn a lot from your spouse, as your mate is your mirror. That's one example, but there are many more that one comes out with wisdom. Yes.
Thank you, Vaisesika, for some nice points here. I want to share a reflection about, like you mentioned, how I live to be corrected.
Yes.
And also how when situations happen, we look how we can learn from that situation. So just in relation to that, I have a question, like, you know, when situations do happen, it's very hard to step back and think about, you know, why this is happening. But of course, after the situation is over, then it seems all happening for a purpose. But then how do we proactively also deal with situations coming our way?
What a good question, because how many times have I acted in a certain way and then later on I think, boy, if I had restrained myself and acted in a different way, in a more measured way, the result would have been much better. So really what you're asking is how to change that timeline and make sure that I make the right choice or reaction in real time. And one of the answers is to take time to deliberate on a daily basis. This is sadhana, or spiritual practice. Remember what you are based on what your values are based on who you are and what your goals are. Because if you're aware of what your goal is in life, your ultimate goal, then you may be less reactive in certain circumstances. So, for instance, if you're aware of the fact that you are a spiritual being, and you're really not that affected by what goes on around you ultimately, because you have the choice of how to react to it. And when you're situated like that, when something comes up where you normally would be reactive, you'll have the wherewithal to be restrained and forbearant in certain circumstances. Taking time, for instance, each day before you leave your house, your apartment, and fortifying yourself with spiritual knowledge and the experience of introspection and witnessing your higher self is very important. And then carrying around this idea, I live to be corrected. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you should be always ready, prepared to give respect to others and not take respect for yourself. You could try that for one whole day and see what happens. Because the false ego also always wants to assert himself, a little emperor, and say, no, I want to be the king. I want to be in the center. But if you hear from wisdom literatures that actually you don't have to be the center, and you'll actually be more honored if you step back from that and learn to give respect to others. That means you're in a prepared state of mind. And practice. And when you practice it, then you'll notice the fruit. It will come.
Thank you.
You know, I have an example of that. It's just such an almost insignificant incident, but it was so demonstrative of this principle, and something actually happened to me. I was doing some work here at the house, and I had to go to the paint store. I was back and forth. This is like 10 years ago. So I parked my car in front of the paint store. I ran in because I was just getting a couple of things, and the parking meter was there, and I guess it ran out. I don't think I put any money in it either. But when I came out, the officer was writing me a ticket for the parking. And I saw her, and she looked really embattled, like she's used to being screamed at. I think meter maids really get it. You know, when you know, the parking police, they hear it from everybody. It's not my fault. I was just about to put something in. So she when I was walking out, I said, "Oh, is that for me?" And she said, "Yeah." And she started handing to me, and she said, "I'm sorry." And I said, "No problem." I mean, I really didn't react to it because I was like, it's okay. You know, it's just these things happen. I had no reaction really. She was so surprised that I didn't react genuinely. She took it back. She took it back. I don't think she'd seen that before. You know, most people would like some kind of sour look on their face or something, but I did. It was actually seemingly so insignificant, but I thought about it on the way home about human interaction. If you're prepared and you're actually willing to accept responsibility for things you did wrong and you don't blame other people, just in that one incident, I saw that it changes everything. So you change your environment. There's a fruit there from being forbearant and tolerant. Thanks for bringing that up, Manu.
Hi, my name's Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Thank you for your knowledge. I swear, when you talk, it is so comforting to me.
Oh, good. I'm so happy.
Wisdom. The thing that really resonated with me was where the attention goes, energy flows. I have a wonderful partner. We are great together, but when he comes home from work, he is so embroiled with work issues, he can't let it go. And I'm the type that when the work day's over, no matter how hard it was, I'm ready to have positive energy. But I notice as his attention continues on work, it tends to then bring me down a little. And I start thinking about my things. And I just wondered if you had a way or any ideas of how I could approach it, because I want to be a good listener. I want to be there for him. But at the same time, I want him to let go of this and have downtime.
Yeah, such a good point, Linda. Thank you for bringing that up. I like you added that extra element because as I heard it, you know, for ourselves, where our attention goes, energy flows, but also when someone else that we're connected with in our lives is directing his or her energy in a particular direction, it tends to take us that way also. And that's how powerful attention is. Yes, that's very true. And we've done experiments before in some of our seminars just showing how if you're talking to somebody and you divert your attention even for a second, by like, just say I'm talking to you now and I look at my watch, then there's this sudden, you know, but very brief break in my attention. And it can cause a little disturbance because the listeners might be thinking, oh, he's got to go, he's in a hurry, he's not listening to me. What to speak if I look at my phone, like I'm looking at a text or something like that. So yeah, this is important. Now you asked the practical question, what to do about it. And my experience, the best thing to do, especially in long-term relationships, is to discuss these things deliberately at some point, because the success of a relationship has to do really with how much attention each partner is giving the other. And in order to be deliberate, you have to deliberate. The words are identical. Deliberation leads to being deliberate. And so with a partner, you know, if you set aside some time during the month, during the year, during the week, to say, let's have a focused conversation, or you may not use the word focused, but let's just have some personal time and let's just talk with no other agenda. You can request that actually. And during those times, you know, it's helpful to have an agenda where you say, here are some of the things that are, you know, really working for me, and here's some of the other places where there's room for improvement. Otherwise, how do you improve a relationship? So taking that time deliberately is very valuable. And it's rare these days because oftentimes we consider the fact that we're in the same room or in the same house to be synonymous with giving attention to somebody. Just because you live together doesn't mean you're giving them the kind of attention that they need. So request it is my suggestion, and then take a little time to talk. And if you do that and you can come to a clear understanding and the person is sympathetic that, oh yeah, actually this matters to her, that I take a little time and acknowledge, and you know, we're just present together and not absence presence, then that person might start to, you know, apportion some time, and it'll make all the difference.
I think that sounds great. I like your idea of not just saying that this bothers me, but bringing in the things that I like about the relationship, because I don't want it to come off as negative only.
Yeah. I learned that once in a communication class, always present a sandwich. First say what you like, then say what the other things where there's room for improvement, and then finish on the other side with something else you like to make it palatable sandwich. Otherwise, it may be hard to swallow just the raw thing. Like this is where there's room for improvement.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for bringing in such an important point, Linda. It's great to hear you.
We have one more question, if it's okay, from Facebook.
Okay.
Cameron Ward is asking, while absorbed in my spiritual practice, I sometimes give in to a mental urge, such as sleeping more than necessary, or etc. And I noticed that there is a difference in my mental and physical. It makes a difference to my mentally and physically, and often get frustrated and disappointed. Do you have any mantra how I can stay positive and enthusiastic when a situation like this happens?
Yeah, if you can confirm, did he say one of the distractions was sleep?
Sleeping or getting distracted, yes, yeah.
Sleeping, getting distracted. Okay, Well, a couple of tips for you. And who am I talking, Cameron?
Yes, Cameron Ward.
Okay. Yes, Cameron. So one thing that is helpful is to baby-proof your environment. What I mean by that is like when parents have a child, they baby-proof the house, right? Because they know the child's going to go around and grab everything. Have you ever seen that? So the parents think, okay, everyone's got to be moved at a much higher level, so the baby's not going to go through, pull it off, hurt him or herself, put it in its mouth, and so forth. So you also baby-proof your environment, because you treat your mind like a little baby. You can't trust it. It's going to go here, there, and everywhere. So ahead of time, try to create a sacred space, and during and in that space, make sure there's nothing that's going to grab your attention away. Like don't keep your phone there. Make sure there's a do not disturb sign on the door. Really close off all the gaps. That's one thing that really helps. And just that, being very deliberate about that every day, even if you don't have a deep meditation, the fact that you closed yourself off from the outside world, you'll start to develop a little more appreciation for your own self. This principle of what I was talking about, it's more important of what you are than what you have. So that's one thing, preemptively do that. And the other is, the yogic lifestyle is very practical also. If you're feeling sleepy, oftentimes it's because you're not getting enough sleep. So make sure that you sleep enough, because for meditation, your brain actually has to be alert. This idea that I start meditating and then I'll just start snoring is not what's presented in the wisdom literatures on meditation. Actually, the mind is extremely alert and focused, and being focused on itself rather than on the machinations of the mind. So get enough sleep, baby-proof your place, and also get association. Wherever I go around the world, I conduct these Joppa circles. Joppa is this mantra meditation that you do where you sit or you walk very slowly and you chant the mantra again and again, and you listen very carefully. That's Joppa. And so we have this program in many places around the world where we have a Joppa circle, and we sit in a circle when we chant. And although we're doing it as a private meditation, just the fact of presence of other people, it makes you more aware of what you're doing, and there's a sort of shared energy. In fact, one of the students that I've been working with, who's in Japan, who's very enthusiastic, but she lives in a very remote place. I talked about the Joppa circle, and she was so innovative. She started one online. So when she does, of course, you have to be careful when you go online to make sure you're doing Joppa and not, surfing the internet. But it's been very successful. She has a lot of people that joins her every day when she does her morning Joppa mantra meditation. And just knowing that there's 25 other people who have joined in and they're spending that hour chanting helps her to stay focused much more than she was before. So that's something else that you can look into. Join a Joppa circle. We have a campaign. Someone gave me this hat for my birthday. Make Joppa great again. So you can think about ways that you can make it Joppa better in your life with some of those tips. So I have a few other points I'd like to leave you with, and that is that practice is really important, and the statement is practice transforms knowledge into wisdom. And don't worry about if a practice is a hard slog. It's meant to be. It's always a hard slog. But if you take legitimate knowledge and you try to employ it in your life, yeah, it's going to be hard. But there's the fruit. You're going to get wisdom, and you can't buy wisdom anywhere. You have to get it yourself. You have to put in the work. And if you do it, you'll feel so happy. Now, the other thing that we have going for us, according to the Bhagavad Gita and all the wisdom literatures on meditation, is that the mind will adapt to what you apply in the moment. It's actually very pliable. You can change your mind. You can change the way it thinks. You can change the direction you're going in life, but you have to stay present and work on yourself. and learn how to do your duty, resist the temptations. Every tiny victory you make will start to readjust your mind and the way it works. And you only get one mind, so you have to, work with what you have. And the results are just inordinate, disproportionate, because the experience of wisdom and absorption is so powerful. It's really the goal. Here are a couple tools of knowledge that are given in the wisdom literatures. Believe it or not, it starts with this: be prepared to give respect to others. Don't expect or demand respect for yourself. Now, that doesn't mean be a doormat for every single person and allow bullying. And it doesn't matter if somebody runs you over with their car. It does. We do practically deal with all these things. What I'm talking about is learning to tone down the false ego. Don't make it all about yourself. There's a much bigger world out there when you start giving respect to other people. Find something to respect in them. And then don't demand respect for yourself. It's easier to give respect to other people than to not expect respect for yourself, because people all the time will respect somebody else, but then what about me? Now, where's mine? Give me some, you say it back now, how great I am. Wow, what if you can actually be in that place where you're giving respect and you don't expect anything in return? It gives you higher knowledge, because you start to see that I don't need it. I don't have to have that to survive. It's not my oxygen. My real oxygen is knowing myself. The self is so complete. The spiritual self is full of knowledge and wisdom and also bliss. And if you can come to that level, that's higher ground. And this is one of the practices. It's humility, giving respect, don't take respect. And there's just three altogether. The second one is practice forbearance and forgiveness. And we have given a whole seminar on forgiveness. Again, a disclaimer, it doesn't mean that you don't do due process if somebody legitimately offends you. There are ways to do it, but you can also simultaneously forgive, because not forgiving somebody and trying to hold a grudge against them is, as they say, like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. But developing the muscle of forgiveness and being able to be forbearant, these are actually high-minded. Only people who have worked on themselves internally, some can actually do this. You'll notice it. Even people who have a lot of money, it doesn't matter. They're not forbearant, they're not forgiving, but these are powers that you can develop. They're very difficult to develop, but if you can, then you'll be much, much happier. And it opens the door for real knowledge, wisdom, and absorption. And the third point that I'll make today is become a civil engineer. What do I mean by that? Civil engineers mean learn how to be civil. I was reading on recently when I was doing some research on this, that incivility is very expensive in society. It causes a lot of problems, the incivility that takes place. And let me just give you one definition I found of civility. Civility is about more than just politeness, although politeness is a necessary first step. It is about disagreeing without disrespect, seeking common ground as a starting point for dialogue about differences, listening past one's preconceptions and teaching others to do the same. Civility is the hard work of staying present even with those with whom we have deep-rooted and fierce disagreements. It is about negotiating interpersonal power such that everybody's voice is heard and nobody's is ignored. So that's one example of the topic of civility. But let me give you a couple of other ideas. Civility means giving credit where credit is due. Don't be envious and hold back when you're supposed to give credit to somebody. Listen before giving advice. An uncivilized person simply gives free advice without even listening to the person's situation. And here is some digested wisdom. when our efforts to safeguard our happiness go beyond certain boundaries, this is incivility. And when we're uncivil, we don't find happiness, rather we just get conflict. I'll just say it again. There's a way in which I may be working in life in a self-interested way to safeguard my own happiness. But when it goes beyond a particular boundary, incivility arises. I'm doing something which is violating others just for my own happiness. But we don't get happiness from that. And rather we just get conflict. So being civil is a high-mindedness that develops from introspection, from validating our spiritual side more than just what we have, and knowing that happiness comes from within. So the three things I mentioned were: be prepared to give respect to others. Don't expect or demand respect for yourself. Practice. The second one is practice forbearance and forgiveness. And the third is be a civil engineer. Be civil. Learn what civility means and avoid incivility at all costs. Believe it or not, those are tenets out of 20. I just gave 3 that are mentioned in the wisdom literatures that open the door for knowledge, for actual meditation, so we can become absorbed. And the last thing I'll say today is that mantra meditation is very powerful. And if you attend to it every day and count your mantras and you're consistent in it, it will start to open the door for you for many of these good qualities, because the mantra brings some extra spiritual power so that we can rise to a higher level of consciousness. As I mentioned before, it also expands our consciousness. The word sukha means an expanded consciousness through which we have a lot of room to see the world in higher ways. And when our consciousness is contracted due to thinking about material things and just being absorbed in my own concerns and happiness, then naturally I feel disturbed, because I'm in a crowded little room with a lot of different material desires with jagged edges. So learn to expand the consciousness through mantra meditation. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining me on an afternoon. And thanks, JM, for keeping the whole show running here. And some really great comments came in, and I see that there are a few more that we missed, right, JM?
Yes, we will follow through email. Yes.
Okay. For those of you who want to ask more questions, feel free to write into the website, and our team will be keeping a catalog, all of them, and we will get back to you on your questions as soon as possible in writing if we're not able to cover them when you call in. And I thank you very, very much. So remember, your values determine your character, and your character determines your value. 2, live to be corrected. Try that on for size. 3, what I am is more important than what I have. And 4, where attention goes, energy flows. Thank you very much, everybody, and look forward to seeing you soon. I'm heading off to India on Monday. I'll be gone for 5 weeks, but we're taking our camera crew with us. So we will be checking in from various places. I don't guarantee that it will be quiet, because so far I've never found a quiet place in India. But we will be broadcasting, so I look forward to seeing you live somewhere from India. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.